can we go back and relook at the expropriation act? And we said, no, leave those things. We've passed them. Let's focus on the budget. We all don't want to burden the nation with VAT, so this is temporary. What the minister really needs for this is about 13 billion and another 14 billion next year. But we all agree that if we fix Transnet, fix the ports, we put more money in infrastructure, we take the economy around, this growth must then allow us not to continue with VAT. So we thought we were agreeing, but the DA dug his heels and said, no, if you don't agree to do those things, we are not supporting. So we went to Parliament and other parties said, no, at 0.5% we can support, especially because you may not need it next year. It's just to cross this period where we need it because the minister wants to put more money for early childhood development, basic education, in health, to fix hospitals, and also to ensure that there could be better grants for elderly people, a bit of increase there. All he will do there is inflation increase for all age pensions. Then the minister said, okay guys, if you feel that I'm burdening poor people, I will increase the goods for that sector, 0.8 more goods at that level, food, etc., to cushion the poor. So at the moment, as we speak, the 13 billion rent that we get from VAT, only about 3 billion is really a contribution from the lowest sector of our community. So the argument that we're burdening more the poor is not actually correct because of the intervention that government is doing. Remember, the money that comes in goes straight to education, to health, to supporting old age pensions and other grants, and some of it goes to that 1 trillion rand over the next 3 years. The money begins to go more into infrastructure as well. So we are meeting today at 10 o'clock as leaders of the ANC to decide on the way forward, because a government that does not have a budget is no government. In fact, if you don't have a budget, then it's over. So we must have a budget. Otherwise, what kind of government is this? What are we going to do? We've already missed the 1st of April. Because that's when the budget must kick in. So we pushed it back to the 1st of May, just to give parties a bit of time to see, is there something else we can do? But we are not married to VAT as a lifetime thing. It's really just to cross this bridge now. We think that we can push growth beyond 30% of GDP in this next 3 years. Next year, or in this financial year, the minister is saying 1.9% growth, but with all these other plans, we want to push beyond 3%, which would be very good, because then we can have enough money or enough revenues for national treasury to be able to fund this medium-term development plan without necessarily increasing taxes.
So on radio this morning, there was saying that Elon Musk has lost, I think, $30 billion of his personal wealth. It's much more than what we needed to cover our shortfalls. So we want to ask to give you the opportunity, table by table, pose your questions. Yeah, the key sponsor, you will go first. But what I am hoping to avoid are long speeches. We don't want a repeat of the State of the Nation address. Keep the question very short, precise, and respectful. And respectful. Okay. Civic, you want to go first?
Thanks, John. My question is actually in response to what you said about Elon Musk. Not a fan of Elon Musk, and I don't really agree with what he's doing. But don't you think in South Africa we should look at having a department that looks at reducing government wastage? In that way, we can actually fund some of the programs we have.
Yes, indeed. In fact, we've got something that we don't talk a lot about. In the presidency, we started what we call Operation Vula, or Vulindlela. Operation Vulindlela is meant to do exactly that. We're looking at economic reforms, we're looking at cutting red tape, looking at areas where there's wastage. In fact, that structure report directly to the president, and it's in the presidency. My team from the Deputy President Office worked with the team in the President Office plus National Treasury. So already we are doing exactly that. Because it is true that in some areas of government you do find wastage. In some areas you find that departments are given money they don't spend on time, including in local government. So Operation Vulindlela is meant to do exactly what Elon Musk is trying to do in the US, but it's located in the presidency. And we will be talking more about its achievement as we go forward, because one of the things that we are looking at now is the network industries. We're looking at the ESCOM, we're looking at Transnet, Trasa, and it's kind of a whole lot of infrastructure interventions that will help us drive growth. So it is there.
No, thank you very much. It's there, but it's also not with what is this machine that is a chainsaw? A chainsaw. Okay. You had. I'll come to the media people a little bit later on, because I want to get just the people who paid. Let them speak first. And we'll come back to you. Let me go to the back there, down. As I said, short and sharp.
Thank you for the opportunity. Deputy President,
Your name, please.
what are the plans
Your name, please.
for the infrastructure?
Name?
It's not Kulu. I come from the Yarona NPC. My question is around township economy and the plans to incentivize businesses in terms of the rollout of necessary infrastructure, such as Wi-Fi's and so forth. Please, if you can speak into that. Thank you.
Yes, that program does exist. In fact, I remember launching a program with the former minister, Monte Gumbele, in the Popo, where we're putting Wi-Fi connectivity in the township areas. So the program is there, but as you know, there's a new minister there. So we will check with you where this program is at the moment, but it was launched already a year ago.
Let me just take it from the next table. Okay, let's take this hand here. Can you decide?
Deputy President of Kathrada. In the clothing industry, we see the opportunity in both local manufacturing and township retail. We're also investing in skills and job creation. But we'd like to understand how can businesses like ours better align with government's priorities to revitalize manufacturing and grow sustainable retail ecosystems across the country.
Your name?
Hamza.
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 Hamza. Thank you, Hamza. what we are doing at the moment, we set up what we call the Human Resource Development Council, which I'm chairing, appointed by the President. We work with the private sector, the trade unions, NGO, and we're looking at skill sets in the country. So, because you are working in that sector, you're looking at the issue of skills, you can come and work with us. We're already working with a lot of organizations in the country. We particularly are targeting young people, get young people more relevant skills, so that we don't only wait for universities and technical colleges. In fact, the universities are also in the HRDC, the technical colleges. We've also noticed that a lot of young people prefer to go to universities instead of technical colleges. And so we try to channel them there. But we want to call on business to be able to do internships. Already as government, we're taking a lot of young people into our departments so that they are given an opportunity to train on duty. I was in Japan last month, and I visited a company called Isuzu. Now, what struck me when I said Isuzu factory, a lot of young people, building these cars, putting different cars on the conveyor belt. And I asked the managers, I said, where do you get these young people with skills? And they said, no, we get them everywhere. They don't come with skills, we train them here. So we get the young people in colleges, out of school, they come to Isuzu, we train them to become the experts that they are now. Why can't we do it in South Africa? A lot of companies, Isuzu I know is also in the Eastern Cape, but we go and visit them and see what they are doing there. But can you imagine if all companies in South Africa are doing exactly that? Bring young people, train them, government departments. We will not see that say we've got unemployed graduates, because we will train them in what is relevant, the relevant skills that the economy requires. So I think that's what we should do. You must come and work with us.
I want to finish off here. Can we take this lady here? And then we'll move you to the center.
Morning, Deputy President. My name is Nosam Bata. I am from Yeovil Bellevue Civic Association. As you are doing elections are won at local level. The performance of councillors is well documented. I want to know if the government will consider or please consider civic movement representation, participation and implementation of service delivery issues and decisions.
Yes, indeed. When I go around the country on issues of service delivery, as I said, and I meet with traditional leaders, civic organizations, youth organizations. So by all means, because you see, our approach now to improving service delivery in the country is to ensure that we bring various role players. And civic organizations are very key when it comes to this. So that is something that we are open to. We are already engaged in a lot of civic organizations in various areas to work with us. And not just to talk to them in meetings, but practically to be engaged in activities that are happening out there. So it's something that we can talk to you about.
Let's get that. There's a hand right at the back. There's one, two, three.
Thank you very much, Sean, for inviting me tonight. I'm really honored to be here. And our Deputy President there, I remember formerly coming to Asia or way back in the 70s and 80s. So that's great. I'd like to, first of all, compliment our founding fathers for having given us a system that they have. In other words, what they've done is that we had what we had, and they built on that rather than destroying that and starting something completely new. In South Africa, we pay taxes left, right, and center. Income tax, value-added tax, corporate tax, progressive tax, property tax, capital gains tax. So we are a winning nation. You know, this year I think we've collected already 2,400 billion in taxes compared to when we started out in 1994, which was 60 billion. So we're a winning nation. We've got universal education, we have pensions. So that being said, what I've been really worried about over the years is that we're not doing anything to give title to people, to shack dwellers, for example. We talk about expropriation without compensation. But we've got all these shack dwellers. What all this property that they put up there? Why can't we survey those properties, give those people title? The titles that they get, the title deeds that they have, they can then go to the banks and borrow money against it, start businesses, and develop their homes. I think that'll be a hell of a boost to the economy, you know? I think what makes the Western system so dynamic is because they collect a lot of taxes, and they know how what can I say?
Thanks for saying. Well, the property. We've got the question.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. In fact, one of the things the Minister of Human Settlement is doing at the moment is to give titles to people. It's a program that we started quite some time now. When I was the ABC for Human Settlement in Gauteng, I also got involved in pushing that title. And you're quite right, when you give people titles, they have a sense of ownership and they develop their properties. So that problem is continuing, because otherwise, if they sit and they build themselves nice houses, and you see them in rural areas, you go to Limpopo, and as you see big houses there, but if people don't have title deeds to those properties, they can't go to a bank and say, I own this, can I get more, funding to start a business and so on. So those properties become actually dead capital. So we are giving them the titles. And expropriation is not a law that is going to target people's properties unfairly. Sometimes people get afraid. In South Africa, there are vast amounts of land that are lying fallow. There are vast amounts of properties and land owned by absentee landlords sitting in London. The land is not being used productively. There are vast amounts of land that are owned by few people in our country. We want more people to have access to this land. And in fact, the state has been compensating people in some areas where we have taken land. There will be some places where we may not compensate because this land is needed for public good. But I can tell you, we are nowhere looking at people's houses at all. We are looking at big farms and land that is out there where only one person owns everything. The Freedom Charter, which we will celebrate this year, said the land must be shared amongst those who work it. We want to make that a reality. This is a document that Comrade Uncle Kathy and them drafted and brought about. We have to share the land. But I agree with you that those who are already building for themselves, the state must demarcate those areas, make them formal townships or suburbs, and give them title deeds for their land so that is not debt capital.
Thank you. My name is Ibrahim. Deputy President, government took a decision not to impose retaliatory tariffs against the US, when most countries basically have decided to do retaliatory tariffs. Why is that, and how do you think that helps?
Yes, Comrade Cody, we've seen that actually. Many countries, especially in Europe and in the East, have come with retaliatory tariffs against the US. We decided we should take a different approach for now. We want to engage the Trump administration. In fact, even before this issue of tariffs, the president was going to send a delegation to the US, because you recall that there are some people who went to the US, I think it's AfriForum, Solidarity, and said, we are doing bad things in this country. They convinced President Trump, South Africa is doing very bad things out there. So we wanted to send a delegation there, but the issue of tariffs came. So we have agreed. The president said, look, let's not rush, let's engage. Let's use our diplomatic channels to engage with the administration. I don't know where we're going to end up as things intensify. We've already been hit with 30% tariffs for goods that we export to the US. In fact, President Trump was saying he actually gave us a discount. He said it was 60%. So it's South Africa, 60%, but I'm giving them 30% discount. But we think that if like President Trump is doing, then everybody is retaliating. At the end, the people who are going to be victims are the consumers, even the American people, because goods are going to be expensive for them as much as they'll be expensive for other countries. So that kind of trade war tariff, I think, is not very helpful. I think we need to find a solution, because you raise tariff, I raise tariff, at the end, who pays? The consumers. Things are becoming more and more expensive. So we do hope, Comrade Shan, that when we send the delegation there, they will listen to us, hopingly. So let's try that. If it doesn't work, we'll review.
You can applaud that one.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you very much, Deputy President. I am representing a company of Ranami in the ICT sector, and my question is around the budget process. You gave us a very insightful understanding of what happened behind the scenes in trying to get the budget approved, in trying to solve it in the budget, and especially around the discussions of the committee of 7 ministers. And right at the tail end of that, you mentioned that the DA specifically then shifted goalposts. Started talking about the Ballot Act, Expropriation Act, etc. Now you can't have a situation where if you're part of government and you vote against the budget, you still will be part of the GNU. Now my question to you is it up to the DA to decide whether they're going to be in the GNU? Is it up to the GNU, other parties, etc.? And why this question is important to us, especially in the private sector, is you would have noticed that the rand dollar depreciated over the rand over the last few days. And that's specifically to do with the DA voting against the budget. So obviously there's a concern of what happens to our currency, especially with companies that deal a lot in international and foreign dealings. So what do you foresee in the future for the GNU, and especially the DA participation? My second question.
One question.
the future of the GNU. Let me just a brief background that we had a lot of engagements with all parties. The leader of the DA, Minister Steenhuisen, wrote to the president and raised all sort of things. You are not serious about the economy. If you focus on the economy, things will be right. Why don't you fix PRASA, Transnet, and so on? The president responded to say, we are doing exactly that. At some point, I think they also wanted to chair Operation Volunteer themselves. The president said, no, I chair that myself, but you can come and participate. Now, at the end, before we went to Parliament, the president said to Minister Steenhuisen, if you don't vote for this budget, really the ball is in your court. You are defining yourself outside the GNU if you don't vote for this budget. They nevertheless went and did not vote for it. But I can say some of them are working today, they are still working as ministers, they are going around. I would be ashamed to do that. Because where does the budget come from? You have to work as a minister, you have not voted for a budget, but you think it's okay. No, you're going to work. So I'm not sure what they are thinking, but as I said, the top 7 is meeting at 10 o'clock to decide. It's not for me to decide. We will discuss and see. But I know that Helen Ziller said this weekend, they are committed to the GNU, and my response was, vote for the budget. The others said, you went to the government to do what? So we are there now. I guess by this evening you'll get the results of the meeting of the top 7 and the NWC.
Mr. Taylor?
Good morning, Dr. Kankan and Kathrada. Deputy President, the issue of your moral compass is basically very admirable, and I wouldn't say it's a government policy, I think it's an ANC policy. At what cost? Is it at a cost out there in the public space in case that we are doing it at a cost of our poor because of economic pressures that are on it? Are we going to sacrifice that stand? Are we going to negotiate on that stand? Or is it non-negotiable? Thank you.
I guess you
I'm referring to obviously the issue of Palestine.
Palestine. We support the people of Palestine. We have always did. Our approach as South Africa is really to support those who fight for justice and peace all over the world. We come from a situation where we suffered under apartheid, and we're not going to sit idle when other people are persecuted. And that has been our moral stance all the time, from the time of great leaders like President Nelson Mandela, Uncle Kathy, was that we will support other people to get freedom like we did. When we got our freedom in South Africa, because we're supported by others. People all over the world who want peace and justice supported us. So we must do the same.
DP, the question is the national question. We see the rise of narrow nationalism. We see the rise of tribalism. Will the national dialogue address this particular matter? And who will be the motive forces that will be invited to the national dialogue? And I have a suggestion for the national dialogue, that you launch in June this year, that we deepen the process by a year, and do what we did with the Freedom Charter, and go back and intensify this in communities, and then come back in June of next year and adopt the plan. Thank you.
There's a plan. There's a plan.
Sean says there's a plan. We have agreed that the President will announce sometime this year that we are going to a national dialogue, but there are plans in place on how we're going to convene it. There are a number of role players. We talk about motive forces. You know that the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, and other foundations are very key also in that process. We are working together. There will be a steering committee set up to ensure that the national dialogue is properly convened. We want to bring all South Africans. We want to bring sports organizations, civic organizations, churches, almost like we did with the Conference for a Democratic Future, or conventions like those where you leave nobody behind. You bring people in, and then we can have conversation about what kind of South Africa we want to build going forward. What is it that we need to do? What is it that we must avoid doing, that we must drop? So the issues that will feature prominently, and I'm sure once the steering committee announces what the agenda will be, the economy will feature prominently, an inclusive economy, dealing with the challenges of crime and corruption, issues of skills, issues of gender-based violence. So there will be an agenda that will be unveiled. As Sean is saying, there's a plan, there is a committee meeting at the moment from the presidency working with the civil society to ensure that we do proper preparation. I'm not sure if it will happen in June, but certainly we want this process to start this year. One of the challenges we're having now, we're trying to navigate the scheduling, because we are having the G20 heads of states meeting in November. The ANC is having the National General Council. We've now agreed that will be in December. So hopefully we can accommodate the national dialogue in between, or if the first meeting can happen in June, but we're waiting for the President to announce once he has consulted with the key stakeholders, including the foundations.
Thank you. My name is Harry Masini from Meditech Foundation. Mine is related to the budget. As you indicated, the contingency plan. What is your view in regard to the other contingency plan related to the three spheres of government, cutting one sphere of government, either having national to province or national to local, as would be part of minimizing these other costs. For in case if that 0.0.5 doesn't work, that you have another contingency plan. Lastly, is your commitment as a deputy president for you making sure that you have an annual plan for Kathrada Foundation to make sure that the plan are in place in time in a reasonable venue where people will be accessed, and many people, to make sure that Kathrada survive, because we only survive when we come in and sponsor whatever we can sponsor, when many people are coming. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much from the country. Let me start with the last one. I support this engagement that we are having under the name of Comrade Kathy, the Breakfast Series. We will definitely support it from the presidency to make sure. I think Comrade Shan is complaining that this venue is small. We need a bigger venue, proper venue must not be squeezed like this. But let me put it this way. This program has our support from the presidency. We're going to work with the foundation to make sure that it becomes a successful annual event. Must happen every year, so we have an opportunity to bring thought leaders together, different sectors, to talk about important things that affect our country and the globe and how we go forward. So I agree, Henry. Restructuring government is something that we always discuss. Even in the ANC, I mean, this discussion was there. I can't remember completely whether it was in the last conference on NGC where people were saying, no, do away with provinces. Just have national and local, but it didn't win the day. Discussions like those don't happen quickly. They do happen, but you can't say, no, we can restructure government this year, and then, provinces are gone and all that. No, it doesn't happen that way. It's a long-term thing to restructure government. But one thing that probably we should agree on is that government must begin to ensure that we do spending review. We look at restructuring to ensure that we don't have bloated institutions. We don't have too many people that we don't need. I think that would be the first step to look at how we can ensure that we are able to have a kind of structured programs that we can fund with our budget, so that we avoid borrowing, we avoid increasing tax rates, and live within our means. That we will do. But I can't promise that we can wake up tomorrow and say, no, guys, provinces are gone. It will take much more engagement. And then we can discuss it at the national dialogue. People can say, look, can we restructure government, make it leaner? Other people are saying, President, reduce the ministries, merge some of them. I think those are the discussions we should have.
I want to take, table there, and then we table right at the back, and then we're done with the tables. Anybody from this table? No question from this table? That's fine? Okay, there's the end. Related leads.
Hi, Deputy President. My name is Kathrada. I come from a company called Postal Capital. We have an elephant in the room. Those local division. When are we going to implement this? We are all ANC comrades, and we want this party to be in power. If we implement the local division, there was no need for GNU, and there was no need for a vacancy. So that is my comment. Thank you.
Can we take the last table there?
Thank you, Deputy President, for being here today. It's an honor. My name is Wilwan Bismillah. I'm actually just a concerned citizen. And I still be a friend, and in a point that
I was one that reserved my applause because I think now is not the time for applause. I'd like to reserve my applause for when the job's done. I'm also a person that does not have a political party, which is quite scary right now because I don't know who I'm going to vote for in the next election. And that's actually indictment on all parties involved, not just the ANC or the TA or any one of the other parties. I think we really have to reshape South Africa. But to the point, my question and what I think I feel very passionate about small businesses, which is the power train of the economy. I find that firstly they are really affected by security issues. When you can't operate in a country where there's safety and security is very difficult to do business, so that stifles a lot of business turnover, which increases taxes and prosperity for the country. And secondly, the over-regulation of small business. I think that's really killing small business already. Thank you.
Okay, very last question in front. I don't know who you promised there, but no, that's why I wanted.
Good morning, Deputy President. You indicated earlier that obviously South Africa is hosting the G20 this year. I'll just like to hear your views on the geopolitical landscape and what risk and more importantly opportunities you see for South Africa in terms of positioning ourselves, one, to protect and grow our economy, and what's the overall strategy with the current very complex geopolitical situation we find ourselves in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe let me start with that last question. If you look at the theme of our G20, we chose solidarity, equality and sustainability. We've then decided that we should use our presidency of the G20 to benefit the entire continent, involve the continent, not just South Africa. And solidarity for us is very important. Equality is very important. Sustainability is very important. So we should use the G20 to make sure that after our presidency, we can look back and say we were able to develop not only South Africa, but the continent. The geopolitics at the moment really requires that we should be engaging with other nations as well. We know that we are one of the U.S. biggest trading partners, but there's nothing that says, we shouldn't intensify our trade relations with India, with China, and other countries. The European Union was here 2 weeks ago. As Trump is imposing tariffs, the European Union was here, and they said, we want to work with you. So I think we must begin as a country to look at where else can we begin to improve relations, trade relations, people-to-people relations. But also we need to become self-reliant as a country. I can tell you with our program on HIV and AIDS and TB, we spend about 48 billion rand a year as a country. Only 8 billion rand comes from the US. So we don't budget on the basis of what we get from others. There are countries in the continent that do that, where we find that their budget for health, 60% comes from the US. We don't. So already we are beginning to look at how we can ensure that whatever resources we have, we can use to drive our own programs so that we don't rely on aid. So that's what we will do. And I'm hoping that with the G20 we'll be able to work with other countries to be able to ensure that we also strengthen solidarity and focus on economic development, not only of South Africa but the continent. We think that is also an opportunity to make sure that the African continental free trade area is implemented. So we're bringing that on board as well. So we work with these other countries around there, because Africa itself as a continent is a big market. if we get our story right. We sort out infrastructure and work together, strengthen regional integration, we know that we can get somewhere. Zondo Commission, the Parliament is currently having a process to deal with that. There is a structured Parliament that is going through all the recommendations of the Zondo Commission. I think in a matter of time we will get their report in terms of how far they are. Some of the Zondo Commission recommendations are already being implemented because we are already busy with structural reforms, and you know that the Zondo Commission has made the recommendation that relate to how government works as well to avoid corruption. We have a new procurement act that is very transparent, and there will be other laws as well that we will amend and initiate new ones to be able to deal decisively with crime and corruption and ensure that resources are put to best use. Lastly, we will applaud when the job is done. I agree that the job will be done. I've said to my office when I became deputy president that when they asked me, what are your priorities, what do you want to do, I said, implementation. That's where we must focus. We must focus on implementation, the discipline of getting things done. That's what we're doing. So you will see, once you see the results, I will need the biggest applause. But thank you very much for the questions. I think we can assure you that we are getting somewhere.
You heard there's a very important meeting happening at 10 o'clock that has got huge implications for the country, which is why we want to allow the Deputy President to at least have a little bit of the practice. So that's going to happen in June. Is there practice still going to happen? No? He says he's going to do what course? Do a sculptor and
yes, I have to be able to tell the house at 10.
But I want to take one media question first before we close. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Sean. Deputy President, my name is Peter Letoy from East 24. My question is related to the GNU as well. Last week, R1 trillion was wiped off the JSE when news became, when it became public that the GNU is starting to unravel. If we assume half of that R1 trillion is the crowd effect, do you think it's worth it to keep the GNU intact as it is? I.e., do you think it's worth it to keep the DA in government given what happened the JSE last week? Thank you.
But when the DA walked away, we didn't chase them. They must vote for the budget. There's no government that would exist without the budget, so the ball is in their court. You say, well, they can't have their cake and eat it. Here we want commitment. All parties in the GNU are agreeing on the way forward. So we would like to keep the GNU intact, but we have said to all the parties in the GNU, there are things that need to be done in this country. We must improve basic education, bring more children into the system, improve our health sector. What the Minister of Finance said is that this is what he wants to do with this 0.5%. It's not a permanent thing. He's putting R1 trillion into the economy to drive growth so that from next year we don't need the 0.5%. We've told the DA that. So if they are not listening, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do.
Okay, there you have it. Let's wait further developments in the course of the day. I want to invite all of you to join us in breakfast there, but please, I hope that we have all of your registration details. We would like to get your feedback on the session. What worked for you, what didn't work, was it value in terms of your time? And who are the people that you would further want to engage in the course of the year? This is not a once-off legacy breakfast. We want to do this as often as possible, not only because it helps us continue the legacy work of Ahmed Kathrada and the foundation, but we think that the kinds of conversation that you've had here today is something that needs to be encouraged with as many role players as possible, as often as possible. So on behalf of the foundation, I really want to thank all of you here. I want to thank the Deputy President. I really thought that we were going to get a call this morning saying, hey, we've got more important things, and this thing is not going to happen. The fact that you came, I think, speaks volumes for what you think of Ahmed Kathrada and so on that note, please join us for breakfast. Thank you very much, everybody.